Welcome to HFY Beyond Terra, where humanity doesn't just survive, it becomes the galaxy's biggest surprise. Subscribe, and let's go beyond Terra.
The bar was called the Broken Tusks, which was less a name and more a promise. A promise that whatever you brought in, pride, teeth, ribs, or secrets, might leave in pieces. It sat just inside the north gate of Grendhello, where the cobbles changed from trade stone to war stone and the air tasted faintly of soot and boiled grain. The place served a dark beer that could sand varnish off wood, and a stew that had once, according to rumor, contained a boot. On most nights, the Broken Tusks was an orc bar. And on most nights, a human didn't sit alone at the counter with a book. The book wasn't even pretending to be a tavern sort of book. It was thick, stitched, and smelled like pressed leaves. The spine bore tiny stamped letters that only other humans cared about. The human had his sleeves rolled up, ink smudged on his knuckles, and the sort of narrow shoulders that suggested he'd lifted more pages than weapons. He was, to any casual glance, exactly the wrong creature to be in this room. He sat on a tall oak chair with iron bands, one foot on the rung, the other tapping lightly, tap, tap, as if he had a private rhythm that didn't belong to the bar. The barkeep, an orc with tusks like polished bone, watched him from behind the counter with the expression of someone witnessing a weather pattern, not disapproving, not approving, merely aware that a storm might happen. The human turned a page. A pair of dice clattered. Someone laughed too hard. A chair scraped. A song started in the corner and died after 3 notes when the singer remembered he couldn't carry one. The human kept reading. That was what drew Cora Bonebraid's attention. Cora wasn't the biggest orc in the room. She'd fought bigger and made them apologize. But she had the kind of confidence that took up space. Her braids were threaded with bits of copper and wolf teeth, her shoulders bare under a sleeveless leather vest. She moved like a person who'd never had to ask permission to exist. She came in with a small pack of hunters and mercs, shook snow off her hair and took in the room in a single sweep. Then her gaze snagged on the human and his book. She blinked once as if the world had momentarily misbehaved. "What's that?" she asked her companion, a thin orc named Jask who'd lost an ear to a boar and all patience to the world. Jask squinted. "Human." "I know it's a human," Cora said, offended by the obvious. "What's he doing?" Jask shrugged. "Dying, probably, soon." But the human didn't look like he was dying. He looked comfortable. That, Cora decided, was either a lie or an insult. She watched as a drunk orc at a nearby table tossed a peanut, actually a roasted river nut, and it bounced off the human's shoulder. The human glanced back, lifted the nut, set it gently on the counter, and returned to his page without comment. No anger, no fear, just patience. Cora's lips curled. "Oh, I like this one," she murmured. Jask groaned. "Don't." Cora did anyway. She crossed the room and stopped behind the human's chair. She let her shadow fall across his book. The human's tapping foot paused. He didn't look up. Cora leaned down close enough that her breath could ruffle the edge of his page. "You lost, little man." The human's eyes moved across his line of text, finished the sentence, and only then did he close the book with a careful thumb marking his place. He looked up at last. He had brown eyes and the kind of face that would disappear in a crowd except for the calm. Calm was rare in places like the Broken Tusks. Calm was either wisdom or a trap. "Not lost," he said. His voice was mild. "Waiting. For what?" Cora asked. "For someone who said they'd meet me at dusk," he replied. Cora glanced at the windows. It was deep night. "And you're still here." "Still waiting," he confirmed, as if this were a completely reasonable use of time. Cora grinned, showing tusks. "You humans are strange." "I've heard we're consistent," he said. That got a laugh from somewhere behind her. A few heads turned. The air's attention sharpened like a blade being drawn. Cora decided to have a little fun. She swung herself around and without asking dropped into the empty space beside him. It was half a sit and half a claim. Orc etiquette: if you can take a seat, it's yours. If someone wants it, they can fight you for it. Her weight hit the bar chair with a solid thunk. And then the chair screamed. Not with a mouth, obviously, but the wood creaked so sharply it might as well have cried out. Cora felt the grain flex under her thighs, the iron bands groan. Then something else happened: heat. It rose in a sudden wave from the seat, blooming upward through her armor and into her skin. Not the pleasant heat of a hearth or a hot drink, not the sting of a forge. This was deeper, an internal, invasive heat, like the breath of a creature that lived in volcanic caves. Cora's eyes widened. Her first thought, embarrassingly, was that the chair was cursed. Her second thought was that she was on fire. She sprang up so fast the stool tipped backward and clattered to the floor. The room went quiet in that way bars do when a fight is about to start. Cora stared at the chair as if it had betrayed her. The human, still sitting on his own stool, sighed softly and rubbed 2 fingers between his brows. "Oh," he said. Cora snapped her gaze to him. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," he replied. "You sat." "That's not an answer," she growled. The barkeep leaned forward, wiping the same glass he'd been wiping for 10 minutes. "Cora," he warned, her name like a low drum beat. Cora ignored him. Her pride was singed. Literally, she thought, because her thighs still felt hot enough that she was suddenly grateful for leather. She reached down, touched the seat with her fingertips. The wood was warm, not merely warmed by a body, warmed as if it had been near flame. Cora flexed her hand. "That's not normal." "No," the human agreed. He looked more annoyed than scared, which did something strange to Cora's understanding of the world. "It is." She leaned closer, voice low. "Are you a mage?" The room had started murmuring now. A few orcs shifted, hands nearer weapons. The human looked at the bar, then at Cora, and lowered his voice as well. "I'm a person with a problem." Cora's grin returned, but it had edges now. "I like problems." "I don't," he said. "Please don't sit on things around me." Cora blinked. "Around you." The human slid his empty hand across the counter, palm down. The air over his skin shimmered. Cora felt it, felt the heat rolling off him in a controlled, contained way, like a beast on a chain. Her nostrils flared. There was a scent underneath the beer and sweat, faint but unmistakable, sulfur. She took a careful step back. "Hell," she whispered. The human's mouth tightened. "We don't use that word in public." Cora's hunters behind her had gone still. Jask looked like he wished he could crawl into his own pocket and disappear. Cora swallowed then, because she was Cora Bonebraid and fear only made her curious. She sat down again, not on the chair, on the counter itself, feet swinging. The barkeep hissed. "Hey!" Cora raised a hand and he shut up, for reasons that had less to do with respect and more to do with the fact that Cora could snap a broom handle in half with one hand. "You're carrying it," Cora said, watching the human closely. "Carrying what?" Cora pointed to his chest. "That." The human followed her gesture as if he might see something new there. He did not. He closed his eyes briefly. "I'm containing it," he corrected. Cora tilted her head. "Inside you," the human hesitated. That hesitation was the first crack in his calm. "Not exactly," he said. "Near me, around me, like a field," Cora snorted. "Like you're haunted." "That's the simplest way to say it," he admitted. Cora's heart thudded once hard. "So why are you in an orc bar, human?" "Because," he said, "orcs understand contracts." That line made several orcs in earshot lift their heads. Orcs did understand contracts. Orc law wasn't written in books. It was written in scars and witnessed by the clan. A promise made in front of the right people could hold more weight than a king's seal. Cora slid off the counter and leaned in. "Who are you?" The human opened his book again, not to read but to reveal a folded paper tucked inside. He slid it toward her. Cora unfolded it with thick fingers. It was a letter written in neat human script. She could read some of it, enough to know it was formal and worried. Her eyes caught on a name. Elia's Quill. She looked up. "Quill like the quills of Ironbridge." The human's lips twitched. "That's the family I ran away from, yes. A noble, or at least a merchant bloodline." The ink stains on his knuckles suddenly felt like a disguise. Cora scanned further, brow furrowing. The letter spoke of an arrangement, of a sealed infernal ember, of a binding lattice, and of a warning: do not allow physical contact with unshielded surfaces. Cora looked at the broken chair, now slightly smoking near one leg. "You're going to pay for that," the barkeep muttered. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a small pouch. The clink of coins sounded like apology. He set it on the counter without looking at the barkeep. "Oak and iron, plus inconvenience." The barkeep snatched it, weighed it in his hand, and grunted. "Accepted." Cora stared at Elias. "You knew this would happen." "I knew it could," he said. "I hoped it wouldn't. I picked this place because the floor is stone and the furniture is sturdier than most." Cora laughed once sharp. "And yet my joke almost lit a chair." Elias met her eyes. "I did say please." There was something in that simple sentence, something that wasn't weakness. Restraint. Cora leaned closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Why are you bound to hellfire, Elias Quill?" Elias' gaze flicked around the room. Too many ears, too many curious minds that might turn fearful. "I'm waiting for a dwarf," he said instead, voice carefully casual. Cora's eyes narrowed. "A dwarf did this to you?" "No," Elias said. "A dwarf might fix it." Cora snorted. "Dwarves fix things by hitting them." "Sometimes," Elias agreed. "That's what a thing needs." Cora sat back, arms folded. "So what's the plan?" "You sit here quietly until your dwarf arrives and you don't burn the building down." "That is," Elias said. The ideal. Cora's smile returned slowly. And if the dwarf doesn't arrive? Elias didn't answer immediately. His tapping foot had started again, but now Cora noticed something else. Each tap was the same interval, like counting, like maintaining a rhythm, like keeping a lid on a pot that wanted to boil. Elias finally said, "Then I leave." Cora watched him. He wasn't armed, not visibly. No sword at his hip, no axe, no knife that she could see. He was in a room full of orcs with a curse that could kill people if it slipped, and his plan if things went wrong was simply leave. Cora felt an unexpected flicker of respect. "You don't look scared," she said. Elia's smile was small and tired. "I'm terrified." Cora blinked at his honesty. It didn't fit the bar's usual language, which was made of threats and boasts. "I'm terrified," Elias repeated, "but fear doesn't solve anything." "Routine does." Cora leaned in. "Routine." Elias tapped the bar twice with 2 fingers, breathing, counting, keeping my thoughts from spiraling, keeping the ember from listening. Cora's skin prickled. "It listens." Elias' eyes darkened. "It tries." Cora sat very still. In the corner, someone started singing again, softly, as if noise could push away the idea of something infernal sitting in their bar. The song was an old marching chant, low and steady. Orcs joined in one by one, not because they were brave, but because they knew rhythm. Cora realized something then. The bar wasn't just a bar. It was a place built on repetition: drink, laugh, fight, heal, repeat. A place where people knew how to live with monsters because half of them were monsters to someone else. Elias had chosen well. Cora stood. "Come with me." Elias looked up. "No." Cora blinked. People usually didn't tell Cora Bonebraid no. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Elias said calmly. "You're curious. Curiosity gets people killed." Cora leaned down until her tusks were inches from his face. "So does sitting alone with a hell thing in your chest." "It's not in my chest," Elias corrected, annoyingly precise. "It's anchored to my blood." Cora paused. "That sounds worse." "It is." Cora straightened. "Then you need a guard, and you need someone who can read the room." "I can read the room," Elias said. Cora swept a hand. "No, you can read books. Different skill." Elias' eyes flicked over the crowd. Several orcs were watching openly now, interest sharp as knives. One big one, scarred across the nose, had the look of someone deciding whether the human was worth trouble. Elias' tapping quickened by half a beat. Cora saw it. "There," she said, "you're slipping." Elias took a slow breath. His foot stopped. Cora, for the first time, softened her voice. "You don't have to do this alone." Elias looked at her, and something weary opened in his expression. "Why would you help me?" Cora shrugged. "Because I sat on your chair and didn't die." "That's not a reason," Elias said. Cora grinned. "It's a start." Elias considered. "And the rest?" Cora's grin faded slightly, replaced by something honest. "Because I hate bullies, and the moment I saw you in here I knew someone would try." Elias' eyes narrowed. "You tried." Cora huffed a laugh. "I tried to annoy you, not to hurt you." Elias' gaze lingered on her hands, on the calluses, on the old scars. He looked at a person who'd lived through violence and still chose how to use it. He closed his book and slid it into his coat. "Fine," he said, But we stay in public. We don't go anywhere secluded. Cora nodded, satisfied. Good, you're learning. They moved from the counter toward a back table where the stone wall was thick and the floor was bare rock. Cora walked slightly ahead, making a path with her presence. Orcs shifted, not out of fear, but out of habit. Cora was someone you made room for. Elias followed, his steps quiet. The scar-nosed orc watched them go and pushed away from his table. Cora felt it without looking. She turned, meeting his gaze. "What?" she demanded. Scar-Nose's eyes slid to Elias. "That human-s carrying trouble." Cora's smile was all tusks now. "So am I." Scar-Nose stood. He was bigger than Cora, not by much. Enough that a fight would be messy. "You vouching for him?" he asked. Cora glanced back at Elias. Elias had stopped, hands visible, posture neutral. But Cora could feel the heat again, faint and hungry like a coal that wanted oxygen. Elias didn't need a sword to be dangerous. He needed control. Cora squared her shoulders. "I'm vouching," she said. "Anyone touches him, they answer to me." Scar-Nose snorted. "He's a curse." Elias spoke then, voice clear and unexpectedly sharp. "I'm a person." Scar-Nose's eyes widened a fraction at the bite in that mild voice. Cora felt something in her chest shift, respect again. For the human's spine, not his muscles. Scar-Nose took a step forward. The bar's air tightened. Elias inhaled, slow. Cora saw the faint shimmer around his hands again like heat haze. Then something small and clever happened. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a ring of chalk, white, dull, ordinary. He knelt and drew a circle on the stone floor with quick, practiced motions. Not runes, not elaborate sigils, just a circle. He tapped the chalk once. Nothing dramatic, but Cora felt the heat snap inward as if pulled by a leash. The shimmer around Elias collapsed, contained tighter. His shoulders relaxed by a millimeter. Scar-Nose hesitated. Cora barked a laugh. "What, never seen chalk?" Scar-Nose scowled. "That's human witchery." Elias rose, dusting his hands. "It's geometry." Scar-Nose looked confused, which in an orc bar was sometimes fatal. Cora took advantage of the moment. She stepped closer to Scar-Nose until he had to tilt his head down to meet her eyes. "You want to test him?" she asked softly. "Go ahead, but if you make him lose focus, you're not fighting him." Scar-Nose swallowed. His gaze flicked to the faintly smoking broken chair at the bar, then back to Elias. Cora saw the calculation, not bravery but survival. Scar-Nose stepped back. "Keep your trouble leashed," he muttered and returned to his table. The room exhaled. Cora turned to Elias, eyebrows raised. "Geometry." Elias' mouth twitched. "Circles help, a boundary. My mind likes boundaries." Cora dropped into a chair at the table, carefully this time testing the seat first like it might bite. It didn't heat up. The chalk circle, she realized, wasn't about the chair, it was about him. Elias sat opposite her within the circle he'd drawn, like a man choosing his cage. Cora tapped the table with one finger. "So, tell me about your hell ember." Elias' eyes narrowed. "No," Cora leaned back. "Fine, tell me what I need to know to keep you from exploding." Elias hesitated, then slowly he nodded. "It reacts to threat," he said, "and to touch. Physical contact can excite it like striking flint." Cora glanced at her own hands. So my joke was a spark. Yes, Elias said, but it's not your fault, my family. He stopped, jaw tightening. They made a bargain, a protective bargain. It worked until it didn't. Now I'm the lock and the key. Cora's expression sobered. That's disgusting. Elias looked surprised. Most people say it's my responsibility. Cora bared her tusks. Your family's bargain, your family's mess. Elias' eyes softened in a way Cora didn't expect. You're blunt. Orcs are, Cora said. Humans hide knives in words. Orcs show them. Elias let out a quiet breath that might have been a laugh. Then here's my knife shown. If I lose control, you run. Cora stared at him. No. Elias blinked. No. Cora leaned forward. If you lose control, I hit you. Hard, knock you out. You can't spiral if you're unconscious. Elias stared, then rubbed his temple as if already exhausted. That's not how binding works. Cora shrugged. Still better than running. Elias' gaze searched her face as if trying to determine whether she was joking. Cora wasn't. He looked away first. You're going to get hurt, he said quietly. Cora's grin returned, smaller. Maybe, but I've been hurt before. The question is, are you worth it? Elias' throat bobbed. I don't know. Cora nodded, accepting that honesty too. Then we find out. At that moment the door banged open and a gust of cold air rushed in, bringing snow and curses. A dwarf stomped inside, beard full of ice crystals, goggles pushed up on his forehead. He scanned the room like a man looking for a problem to punch. His eyes landed on Elias. Quill, the dwarf barked. You late, Elias blinked, startled. I've been here since dusk. The dwarf squinted. Well. Time's slippery. So are you. You ready to stop being a walking furnace? Cora watched Elias' shoulders drop with relief so sharp it was almost painful to see. Yes, Elias said. Please. The dwarf strode closer, then halted when he noticed Cora. And who's the tusked bodyguard? He demanded. Cora lifted her chin. Cora Bonebraid, the dwarf grunted. HMPH, orc names sound like threats. They usually are, Cora said. Elias cleared his throat. Master Brun, this is Cora. Cora, this is Brun Farhand. He's a specialist. Brun peered at the chalk circle on the floor, then at the faint heat shimmer around Elias. He whistled low. Ah, you've tightened it. Good. Kept yourself from cooking anyone. Elias glanced toward the bar. Just a chair. Brun grimaced. Chairs don't sue. Acceptable. Cora crossed her arms. Can you fix him? Brun looked her up and down. Can I fix him? Probably. Can I fix the kind of family that does this? No. Cora liked the dwarf immediately. Brun pulled a small metal case from his coat and snapped it open. Inside were tools that looked like a cross between jeweler's instruments and surgical picks. Also a hammer because dwarf. He pointed at Elias. You're going to hate this. Elias nodded. I already do. Brun glanced at Cora. You stay witness. Cora raised an eyebrow. Why? Because contracts, Brun said, as if that explained everything. Cora glanced at Elias. Elias met her eyes. If this goes wrong, he said softly, I want someone here who'll tell the truth about what happened. Cora's expression tightened. Then she nodded once, a warrior's nod. Fine, she said, but if he dies, I break your nose. Brun snorted. If he dies, you can try. Elias drew a steadying breath, hands resting on his knees, eyes closed. Brun took a thin metal ring from his case, etched with tiny lines like a map, and held it over Elias' chest without touching him. The air shimmered, heat rolled outward. Cora felt the hair on her arms lift. Brun muttered something in Dwarven, half curse, half math, and lowered the ring into the heat like dipping metal into a forge. The ring glowed faintly. Elias' jaw clenched. His breathing quickened, then steadied again as he forced it. Cora watched him fight himself, not with muscle but with discipline. Human strength, she thought, isn't always in the arms. Sometimes it's in the grip you keep on your own mind. Brun clicked his tongue. There. The embers anchored to your bloodline like you said. Nasty knot. Whoever tied it used fear as a stitch. Elias' voice was strained. Can you undo it? Brun shook his head. Not undo, but reroute. He glanced at Cora. Witness this, the human consents. Elias opened his eyes. I consent. Brun nodded, satisfied, and took out the hammer. Cora tensed. You're going to hit him. Brun rolled his eyes. Not him, the lattice. He set the glowing ring on the stone floor inside Elias' chalk circle, then struck it once precisely. The sound was like a bell cracking. The heat in the room surged. Cora's vision wavered at the edges like looking over desert sand. Elias gasped, hands gripping the seat. His teeth bared, not in threat but in pain. Cora stood ready to grab him, then stopped, remembering his warning about touch. Instead, she planted her feet like a wall and glared at the air itself, as if daring the hell ember to get past her. Brun struck again. The ring's etched lines flared and the heat collapsed inward with a violent snap. Silence. Elias sagged forward, breathing hard, sweat on his brow. Cora stared, waiting for smoke, fire, screams. None came. The faint sulfur smell was still there, but muted now like a coal covered in ash. Brun exhaled and closed his case. There. It won't be gone, but it'll be. Quieter, less eager. Elias swallowed, voice hoarse. Thank you. Brun waved a hand. Pay me later, don't die before then. Cora looked Elias over. The shimmer around him was weaker. The air felt normal as an orc bar could be. Elias looked up at her, eyes tired but clear. Cora. Yeah, she said. I'm sorry about the chair. Cora snorted. I'm sorry I tried to make you flinch. Elias' mouth curved. You didn't succeed. Cora leaned down, close again, but this time her tone was different, less predator, more ally. Not today, she said, but I'm stubborn. Elias' eyes warmed. So am I. Cora glanced at the bar's remaining chairs, then at Brun. So what now, dwarf? Brun shrugged. Now the human goes somewhere safe and boring, avoids touching things, eats well, sleeps, stops haunting furniture. Cora looked at Elias. And if he needs to travel, Brun grunted. Then he hires muscle and sense. Cora's grin returned, bright and dangerous. Good, I'm both. Elias blinked. I didn't hire you. Cora tapped the table. Not yet. Elias looked like he wanted to argue. Then his gaze drifted to the crowded room, to the scar-nosed orc watching, to the way danger in Grendhello wore casual faces. He took a slow breath. Fine, he said. But no sitting on my chairs. Cora laughed, real laughter, loud enough to shake the tension loose from the room. "Deal," she said. And somewhere deep, beneath Elia's skin and blood and careful boundaries, the hell ember listened, and for the first time in a long time, found nothing to feed on but the steady rhythm of a human who refused to be ruled by it.